Morning, good to have you with us on this Monday. I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah is on assignment. We begin this hour with the ongoing search for Nancy Guthrie, which is now entering its third week with no arrests. Investigators believe the mother of our NBC News colleague Savannah Guthrie was abducted from her home in Arizona, but law enforcement still has not said publicly if it was a robbery gone wrong or some other kind of crime. A source familiar with the investigation tells NBC News that a glove containing DNA evidence was recovered about 2 miles from Nancy's home. That source says it appears to be consistent with a glove worn by a person who was seen on Nancy's doorbell camera the morning she disappeared. Authorities are now searching for that male suspect. They describe him as about 5'9" to 5'10" with an average build. He was wearing a black Ozark Trail hiker pack backpack that you can only get at Walmart. Investigators say they have fielded more than 30,000 tips since the start of the investigation, with many pouring in after the release of this video. Last night, Savannah posted another heart-wrenching message. It's aimed directly at the person who took her mother, saying it is never too late to do the right thing.
I wanted to come on and it's been 2 weeks since our mom was taken, and I just wanted to come on and say that we still have hope, and we still believe. And I wanted to say to whoever has her or knows where she is, that it's never too late. And you're not lost or alone. And it is never too late to do the right thing. And we are here. We believe. And we believe in the essential goodness of every human being. And it's never too late.
NBC News correspondent Jesse Kirsch joins me now from Tucson with the latest on the investigation. Jesse, good morning. Let's talk a little more about some of the evidence here. This isn't the first glove that's been found near Nancy's home, but what more do we know about this one that investigators are focusing on a little more right now?
Yeah, Joe, good morning. So what authorities have told us is that we know from a source familiar that it was about 16 gloves that have been found in the surrounding broader Tucson area. And what we now know directly from the FBI is that there was a glove found in a field near the side of the road, about 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's home where we are right now. And what we're told by the FBI is that that was packaged up overnight Thursday into Friday and sent to the lab in Florida to be tested. They have preliminary results, but they are waiting to get more information on that. We know from the source familiar that this is an unknown male's DNA. We also know that this glove appears to be consistent with the glove seen in that chilling surveillance video that you're seeing right there. But to be clear, we don't have much detail as to what the term consistent means. Is it the brand of glove? Is it the color of the glove? Is it the shape of the glove? So we do not know much about what that consistency is referring to there. And again, we also, going back to questions about DNA, we'd been told by authorities in recent days that there was a DNA sample that was found at the property. They wouldn't specify where on the property that DNA was found, and what authorities have said is that it does not match Nancy Guthrie and it does not match those who had been in close contact with her. So, you know, we have at least 2 different DNA samples that have been found. Unclear if they are connected at all and what kind of testing is going on there. But there are outstanding questions and outstanding, results that we're waiting to hear from authorities on as this investigation enters its 3rd week.
Jesse, in addition to the glove, there was just a lot of police activity over the weekend near Nancy Guthrie's home. We know a SWAT vehicle was seen entering one neighborhood, still though no new arrests. What do we know about that and just where the focus of this investigation seems to be going right now?
Yeah, according to some of our team sources, what we're looking at now is authorities are leaning away from the individual whose home was searched on Friday, leaning away from an individual who's involved in a traffic stop that got a lot of attention days back. And also, according to these sources, authorities are leaning away from looking at Nancy Guthrie's family. But to be clear, leaning away does not mean that anyone has been absolved of any wrongdoing or all wrongdoing. At this point, there is no publicly named suspect. So from our perspective in the public, authorities haven't named anybody. They may be really leaning into someone, but they have not shown their cards on that if they are. So at this point, presumably everyone has not been ruled out.
And Jesse, over the past couple of weeks, we know just how much the local Tucson community has been showing their support to the Guthrie family. Tell us more about how they're just continuing to do that.
Yeah, and it's not just the Tucson family, Joe. And of course, as our colleague Kelly O'Donnell first highlighted last week, people in this community have been putting up yellow flowers and ribbons, and you can see some of that memorial behind us here. I should say not a memorial, this tribute that is being put out here to show support for Nancy Guthrie, for Savannah, and for their family, and trying to echo those calls of bring her home, something that has become a common refrain over the last couple weeks. But it's not just the Tucson community now. I met a couple here over the weekend that said they drove about 2 hours from the Phoenix area to leave some flowers to show their support on Valentine's Day. And we're hearing from people on social media, and also I talked with someone yesterday in South Carolina who says she tied a yellow ribbon in her neighborhood and has had other people that she knows reach out saying that when they are seeing that, they're thinking of the Guthrie family as well. So there's this chorus of support stretching well beyond Tucson now, Joe. And again, this is as we enter the third week since Nancy Guthrie was last seen. Yeah, that support all over the country, all over the world right now. Jesse Kirsch, appreciate your updates here. Thank you so much. For more analysis on the investigation, I want to bring in former FBI hostage negotiator and CEO of the Convincing Company, Chip Massey. Chip, good to have you with us. Is it surprising at all now as we entered the third week of this investigation that authorities still aren't saying what type of crime they think it is? Why do you think they haven't been able to get to that point yet?
Yeah, Joe, good to be with you. The whole thing about, categorizing this as a specific crime really isn't germane to what's going on, right? I know the public or some locals might be concerned about that, but the reality is Nancy was taken from her home, and that's exactly what they are focused in on.
Talk to us about the role misinformation online can play and distract from the real investigation here. I mean, we've seen these reports of influencers and independent journalists descending on this area. They don't necessarily maybe follow the same standards as the mainstream media and what they choose to share, what they choose to report, the philosophies they throw out there. What are some of the problems that can create?
Sure, as you can imagine, when you have a lot of people vying in online, while it's great in terms of helping us get more eyeballs on the situation, there could be some competing narratives. So what we want to stay away from are, just like you mentioned, Joe, some type of philosophies or different tangents that really aren't related to the facts of the case, and people that don't have direct that weren't in the area or don't have information that is helpful here. So it's one of those things where we want the people who are calling in the tip lines to focus in on, this is what I saw, or this is somebody I know. And that makes it a more direct thing. And that way, things that come in are much more easily accessible to the investigators, and they can go out and run down these leads.
I want to tap into some of your just general FBI experience here. We've been talking so much about this glove this morning, DNA, the FBI's, genetic database. What are some of the possibilities here? How big of a role could DNA play in trying to get some more answers and narrow down the focus to find a suspect here?
Well, DNA is huge, as you know. Whenever we're able to absolve people of crimes that they might have been falsely committed for, or we're able to absolutely finger, yes, you were the one, your DNA was present. So what they're trying to do right now is identify a person to that DNA. And I know a lot of this preliminary, and again, we're not privy to all the information. There could be purposes that they're using this as a means of getting more information and people to come forward. But the idea here is that with DNA, it also creates another pressure on these captors. These things are coming closer and closer to you. We need you to do the right thing, like she said this morning in Savannah's video.
Yeah. And do we have an idea, just now that they have this sample from this glove, could we get answers from the DNA that quickly? How long does that usually take?
So as you can imagine, everything is on hyperspeed here. So it could be that they're looking at a lot of the results right now, or there could be something of a delay just because the process is time intensive. But, we're all looking forward for those results, and hopefully this will yield some very positive information for us.
That is what we're all hoping for. Chip Massey, appreciate your time and your expertise this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joe.
In Washington, a partial government shutdown is now entering its third day. The Department of Homeland Security ran out of funding over the weekend after lawmakers failed to reach an agreement on making reforms to ICE. This means some federal employees, including TSA agents and FEMA workers, are now on the job without pay. And with Congress out for the week, there are growing concerns about how long this shutdown will last. NBC News Washington correspondent Alice Barr joins us now with the latest on this. Alice, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. This is all sounding all too familiar. This partial government shutdown, now the third of President Trump's second term. We don't know yet how it's going to stack up in length, but right now the two parties appear miles apart. This morning, the reality of another partial government shutdown is settling in after the Department of Homeland Security ran out of funding over the weekend with no deal on reforms to immigration enforcement operations.
We need change that is dramatic, that is bold, that is meaningful.
We have to protect law enforcement.
While negotiators struggle for common ground, ICE and Border Patrol at the center of the dispute are still funded through what President Trump called the Big Beautiful Bill, while critical workers at FEMA, the Coast Guard, and TSA are once again working without pay.
People's lives and livelihoods are being played with here.
Union leader Andrew Cardosa says many TSA agents are still recovering from the last shutdown in the fall that snarled air travel for weeks. He says they can't afford another extended stretch without pay.
For me, eventually, it's going to come down to, do I put gas in the car to go to work for free, or do I put food on the table with that money for my kid?
Democrats argue they have to stand firm in the wake of the shooting deaths of two American citizens by federal officers. They're demanding changes, including a uniform code of conduct for ICE and Border Patrol, judicial warrants before immigration arrests, and no masks on officers.
No police department in America doesn't identify themselves.
What are you going to do, expose their faces so you can intimidate their families? What we want is ICE to be able to do their job.
Congress is out until next week, but could come back to vote if there's a deal. And Republicans are accusing Democrats of political theater in the lead up to President Trump's State of the Union address next week. Democratic leadership is rejecting that, saying they hope to reach a deal before then. Joe?
All right, Alice, thank you so much. Let's keep this conversation going with NBC News reporter Gary Grumbach. Gary, the Trump administration's border czar Tom Homan did the media rounds yesterday. He talked about the Democrats' demands when it comes to reforming ICE. He also addressed reports of tensions with Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. What did he have to say about everything?
Yeah, on those demands, which include putting an end to those roving patrols of immigration agents and forcing agents not to wear masks, he called those demands unreasonable. And he said that the agents are wearing masks purely for their safety. He also said agents are not racially profiling. However, half a dozen federal judges around the country have found evidence to the contrary there. On the reports of tensions of the relationship between Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and border czar Tom Homan, he said it wasn't zero. Take a listen to what he said.
Look, do me and Secretary Noem agree on everything? No. That's why we have discussions. That's why every day we have a multi-agency conference call and meeting, and we discuss going forward. And we have different opinions. Well, those different opinions are worked out, and we move forward.
And you'll remember Joe Homan was recently appointed to take over Minnesota's immigration operations after the former person, Greg Bovino, was seen as going a little too far in his tactics.
Gary, let's move on to some other political headlines. We understand a new round of talks between the U.S. and Iran scheduled for tomorrow. Right now, the U.S. is still building up that military presence in the region. What could come out of these talks? Do we know what all could be on the table?
Yeah, Iranian officials are coming out and saying there's actually a lot of common ground between the U.S. and Iran. They say on oil, on gas, on mining, and even they say on aircraft purchases. That's all going to be part of negotiations, according to them, that are going to be getting underway with Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff in the coming days. Here's what Secretary of State Marco Rubio had to say about these talks.
We're dealing with people who make geopolitical decisions on the basis of pure theology. And it's a complicated thing. I mean, no one's ever been able to do a successful deal with Iran, but we're going to try. Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner will be traveling. I think they're traveling right now to have important meetings, and we'll see how that turns out.
Now, the U.S. says they are prepared for the potential for a sustained military campaign if these talks aren't successful, Joe.
Gary, one more thing. Yesterday, we heard from former President Barack Obama. It's the first time we've heard from him since President Trump posted that racist video depicting the former president and his wife, Michelle, as apes. We know there's a history between President Trump and the Obamas. What did President Obama have to say about that and just President Trump's overall social media style?
Yeah. President Obama, that is not holding back about President Trump's comments here. He's calling the administration's behavior, broadly speaking, saying it's deeply troubling. He called it a clown show. Here's what he had to say on a recent podcast.
I think it's important to recognize that the majority of the American people find this behavior deeply troubling. There's this sort of clown show that's happening in social media and on television. And what is true is that there doesn't seem to be any shame about this among people who used to feel like you had to have some sort of decorum and a sense of propriety and respect for the office, right? So that's been lost.
Obama saying he believes most people around the country still believe in decency, courtesy, and kindness. Joe.
All right, Gary Grumbach, lots to cover this morning. Thank you so much. Let's get a check on a powerful storm that's packing heavy rain set to hit California this morning. Meteorologist Andrea Romero is tracking the trouble for us. Andrea, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. We have a close eye on California, as we can see with that moisture moving onshore. We have heavy rain falling right now from San Francisco into Monterey, starting to fall over here in the area of San Luis Obispo. We are expecting about 11 million people under this flood watch that will be in areas of Santa Barbara and Los Angeles. Sees those heavy rainfalls throughout the afternoon hours as the storm system continues to move onshore. We're also dealing with winter weather alerts are going to be extending through Thursday because this is the first of a series of systems that will be impacting the area. And those winter weather alerts are extending all the way into Colorado and into Montana. So it will be an active week ahead for the western coast of the country. Heavy rains will lead to flash flooding in Southern California. Today, we do have that risk of flash flooding, especially in those recent burn scar areas. And it will be impossible to travel across the Sierra Nevada due to that heavy snowfall that's expected in that region. Tomorrow, another strong push of moisture from another system that will be moving onshore. Widespread wind gusts of up to 70 miles per hour are possible. And then Wednesday, that heavy rain will be moving still across Southern California, and we will begin to see more snow across the Rockies. Of course, that is beneficial snow. We do have that snow drought in that area that we're trying to overcome. The rainfall forecast for parts of California, locally up to 7 inches can fall, so that's a lot of rain. Of course, it's the time of year that we do need that rainfall. And then Sierra Nevada, we're looking at possibly up to 5 feet of snow that can accumulate through Wednesday. Now, it's a different story in the middle of the country. It's feeling like spring. We're dealing with record high temperatures. We're possibly going to be reaching this afternoon. We can see, look at Amarillo, Texas, close to 80 degrees will be the high, and that warmth will extend into the East Coast the next couple of days. So we're expecting additional records to fall as those temperatures continue to warm up. And across the Midwest, over in the northern plains. It will remain mild through midweek. 72 as a high in Louisville on Thursday, not bad at all. And in the Northeast, it's going to be mild. We're talking about temperatures that are going to be close to average in the Northeast. Of course, with the warmth, we do have the risk of some fire alerts. 9 million people at a risk, all the way from the Dakotas into Texas, parts of Oklahoma, New Mexico. We're expecting those intense wind gusts. We do have some wind alerts that are in effect. Around 31 million people will be impacted with those wind gusts that will be up to 50 miles per hour in parts of Texas. Now, clearing skies in the Northeast. We had a little bit of snowfall this morning coming into work.
Just a little surprise
just
this
a little,
morning.
Exactly, exactly. But that's moving out, and conditions will improve throughout the day.
All right, we'll take it. A little bit of everything in the forecast. Thank you, Andrea. Appreciate it. 21 up. We want to get to the Olympics here. The shockwave's still reverberating this morning after that huge upset in men's figure skating at the Winter Olympics. 21-year-old Ilya Malinin, known as the Quad God, skated onto the ice Friday night as the heavy favorite to win gold, especially after many of his rivals struggled with their free skates. Well, Malinin struggled too. He fell twice, missed some other jumps, earning the two-time reigning world champion an 8th place finish. In a matter of minutes, his hopes of winning that first individual gold medal were dashed. NBC News international correspondent Claudio Lavonga is in Milan, joins us with more on this big story from over the weekend. Claudio, Malinin went into this competition with the world expecting him not just to win gold, but to win by a lot. I mean, he had not lost in 2 years. What happened?
Well, that's right, Joe. This is probably going to go down as the biggest surprise and upset of the Winter Games here, especially for Team USA. As you mentioned, Ilya Malinin arrived here with the reputation of being unbeatable. He's won pretty much everything for the last couple of years in figure skating. So the question here was not whether he will win a gold medal, but by what margin. Instead, as you mentioned, he stumbled many times, he fell twice, he failed to complete some of his trademark moves like the quad axel, even some simpler moves. And in the end, he finished 8th, and he's going to leave this medal. Well, he left his fans in shock and surprise, but also he's going to leave this Winter Olympics, the first one for him, without an individual medal. So big surprise there, John.
Yeah, no kidding. He does have the team gold at least, but obviously not what he was expecting here. We know moments after that performance, which stunned him and stunned the world, he spoke with Andrea Joyce. I mean, what all has he said about what happened with his performance, why it was so off?
Well, right after the performance, he had still a hot mix. So he was heard saying, well, you know, if they didn't let me off the Olympics team back in 2022 when he was still 17 years old, he was famously left out of the Olympics team, then I wouldn't have performed this badly and this poorly at this Olympics. Then later on, he admitted that all this pressure and all the media and the fact that he came in as a gold favorite, it was all too much for him. And later on, he posted some worrying messages on TikTok. One of them said, sometimes I wish something bad will just happen to me so I don't have to do it myself. The other one was, your little boy is tired, Mom. So that kind of was seen by many as a call for help by someone who, at the end of the day, is still a 21-year-old who had a lot of pressure placed on him, Joe.
Yeah, we have to keep that in mind. And he's certainly not the first figure skater or high-profile athlete to walk in with these high expectations, then run into problems. We know the same thing happened to Nathan Chen 8 years ago. And then just beyond figure skating, we can all remember Simone Biles dealing with the twisties. I mean, when it comes to Malinin here, sports psychologists, what do they say about this? What do they think is happening?
Well, of course, he's, you know, the last of the long line of athletes who disappointed in or came in with great expectations and then, you know, win a medal at the Olympics. Simone Biles, at the end, she came in as favorite in Tokyo 2021, and then she withdrew from the finals because of a mental block. Michaela Schifrin herself, I mean, she was here at the Milano Cortina, but just as it happened in Beijing 2022, she didn't win any medal, even though she's the greatest alpine skier of all time. She won pretty much everything in the World Championship. But if there's one athlete that Ilya Malinin can look at to get some inspiration and hope for the future, it is Nathan Chen, because he also arrived as an 18-year-old favorite in Pyeongchang in 2018. He failed to win a medal, but then 4 years later in Beijing, of course, he won gold. So there's hope there for Ilya Malanin.
Yeah, it had a happy ending there, as did Simone Biles when she returned to the Olympics in Paris just a couple years ago. When it comes to Malanin, do we have an idea of what's next for him? I mean, the World Championships are around the corner. He'll still be young, 25 at the next Winter Olympics. I mean, is he saying much about his future right now?
Well, there's a person who's familiar with the situation and what's going on. He's not authorized to speak, but he confirmed that Ilya Malanin will take part in the exhibition of figure skating, which will take place here on Saturday. Now, there are no medals there. There's no judging, so everybody's just skating to wow the audiences. And so Ilya Malanin is expected to take part in that. And because there's no pressure, probably, he'll come back and skate freely once again. Also, he's expected to take part in the World Championship, which are scheduled for next month in Prague. So that will be the first time where we'll see whether he went over the disappointment and whether he's back to being himself there, Joe.
All right, Claudio, a lot to cover here. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Remember, you can catch all of the best Olympic action on Primetime in Milan, hosted by Mike Tirico, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern on NBC and streaming on Peacock.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.